Finally, some updates in the case of the three men found dead outside of a friend's home in Kansas City 3 weeks ago after watching a Chiefs game. The police now have the toxicology reports, and they apparently show fentanyl, cocaine, marijuana in the systems of all three men. NewsNation is told the amount of fentanyl is well beyond the lethal limit, not legal, but lethal, 3 times the amount. The toxicology reports were shared with family members of the three men, 38-year-old Ricky Johnson, 36-year-old Clayton McGinney, and 37-year-old David Harrington. After mounting pressure from family and the media, the family's furious over the lack of answers until this point. Meanwhile, the living friend, Jordan Willis, who was a tenant in the home they'd gone to, has moved out of the house, checked himself into rehab. Willis never contacting the police, despite the men being dead and frozen in his backyard for 2 days. His family calling the deaths of his friends a serious wake-up call. Quote, after the shocking loss of 3 of his close friends under extremely tragic circumstances, Jordan recognized he had a problem with addiction. He immediately checked himself into rehab after vacating his home and putting his things into storage. Since the beginning of this case, police have said there are no signs of foul play. They're not investigating this as a homicide at this point, something that the families have pushed back against. Recently, NewsNation interviewed the cousin of Clayton McGinney, who talked about Jordan Willis, the man whose house they'd been visiting.
A lot of times I'm hearing that David, Clayton, and Ricky were like brothers. Jordan was kind of off on the side. Mm-hmm. True?
Jordan's a chemist, bro.
Jordan's what?
Jordan's a chemist. They all knew him as that. It was easy for them to go have fun, but he made a mistake. Jordan was the chemist. He's a scientist, right? He does what he needs to do. Now, to use my cousin, my best friend, as a guinea pig?
See, that's the way the families, at least some of them, are feeling, pointing the finger directly at the other guy who was in that house. Back with me, Geraldo Rivera, Rachel Juarez, judge on TV's Hot Bench, and Jesse Weber, NewsNation legal contributor. All right, Geraldo, what do you make of the families are angry?
Well, it's a tragedy. As I said 2 weeks ago on this program, this is about drugs. It was obvious to me. They thought they were doing coke. They were doing fentanyl instead. Another one of these tragic overdoses based on fentanyl. It's a tragic accident. It is what's killing every movie star that you see die under mysterious circumstances. Quietly, weeks later, they release the toxicology, and it's fentanyl in the blood. It is a scourge. It is a killer. If you want to find out who's responsible for those 3 deaths, find out who sold the scientist there, the chemist, the fentanyl, the coke that was supposed to be pure coke.
But it sounds to me like they're basically saying, I mean, at least that family member was saying, this guy was probably cooking something up there.
I agree with Geraldo. That's a possibility. I think it might be premature. Remember, we still don't have the cause of death or the manner of death report from the actual ME, the autopsy report. What I could say is who introduced the fentanyl. If we accept the possibility that it was the fentanyl that killed them all at the same time outside, and perhaps Willis himself took it as well and was knocked out, who introduced it there? Was it Willis himself? Did he know it was part of the drugs? Did he get it from a dealer? We have covered cases before where people lace drugs with these kinds of toxic byproducts, and they're brought up on criminal charges, whether it's manslaughter or something else. So I think that is the next step in the investigation. Even though they're saying it's no foul play, even though they're saying it's no homicide investigation now, that could change once they get more answers.
Rachel?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the issue of whether or not they voluntarily ingested it, whether they knew what they were taking, and if they didn't, who was responsible for the introduction of the fentanyl into whatever they ended up taking, I think that's got to be where the police are going. And we'll see what happens from there, and then we'll get the autopsy report and see if the fentanyl contributed to the death. I mean, look, either way, it contributed. If they froze to death, it's because they took so much fentanyl that they ended up outside in a lawn chair, without
it had to be.
So one way or another, the fentanyl.
There's no other explanation as to how they died other than drug use, right?
Of course.
So the question is just going to be...
Well, it could be hypothermia.
Well, fine, hypothermia, but the only reason that they're out in the cold is because they've been...
As a result of being outside, of course.
And cold and opioids work the same way. They slow your respiration. Your heartbeat slows down. Your breathing slows down. You're outside. It's below zero. At a certain point, your body doesn't support any kind of heat at all. Your temperature drops way down until your heart stops. That's what happens.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your cable provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.